Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Monmouth County. My name is Irene Passmore, and I serve along with Kat Grauso as co-chair of the Caring Committee. And if you don't know much about the Caring Committee, maybe that's a good thing because you haven't needed our services. But if you do need help getting to services because your car broke down or you're anticipating hospitalization and rehabilitation, we are there to help you. We have meal trains, so we provide rides, we will visit. We'll do all kinds of good things that help you recognize you are part of a loving community here. And actually, in the bulletin board in the hall is a breakdown of all the 10 caring communities and who their caring captain is. We have 15 people serving as captains in 10 geographical areas within our wide congregation. So check it out and see where you are and who you might call should you need some help. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. Our mission is to create community, transform ourselves, and transform the world. I draw your attention to the backside of your orders of service for announcements and service information for the coming week. For those of you on the live stream and for video viewers, the order of service link is available to you in the YouTube service description box. After the service, refreshments will be served in the community room just down the hall, and people of all ages are welcome to visit with one another. Today, we will also hold an interim congregational meeting in the community room following the coffee hour. So please stay and join us for that. If you're new to us, please do check out our website, UUCMC. Latest news of the congregation by email.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. George Winston, who many of you may be familiar with that name, was an American, iconic American pianist who sort of was a frontal figure in the New Age movement and was in the middle of so many genres of folk piano, pop piano, jazz. This song, Spring, is from the Velveteen Rabbit. He wrote a song for the Velveteen Rabbit, and then he wrote an entire album. And it's the moment, the Velveteen Rabbit is about a stuffed rabbit, a boy's stuffed rabbit that slowly starts to come to life, to become a real rabbit. It's like a Pinocchio story. And this is the moment in the book when spring finally arrives and the boy can spend time with the rabbit in the garden, and the rabbit starts to move. And at the end of that spring chapter is when the bunny has made the transformation, has officially become real, and has bloomed with all the flowers and creatures of spring. It's a very cool album. I highly recommend checking out. The entire book is read by Meryl Streep, and George Winston provides the soundtrack the entire time on solo piano. It's about, I think it came out in 1984, so it's about 40 years old now. Highly recommend it.
I'm the Reverend Dr. Craig Rubano, and I'm so pleased to see so many of you here. Amidst the drama of our nations flailing around in the world, causing hardship, disease, and fear to untold thousands and financial windfalls to a semi-precious few, it is nonetheless a special, auspicious time of the year to gather together the first Sunday of spring. As the signs of the season push up from the ground, out from the branches, I invoke our congregational theme for the month of March. For we trust the cyclicality of nature to bring warmth and life back into our worlds. Just as last week, as we entered into 4 weeks of focusing on a new fiscal year, we trust in our pledging to uphold and support this congregation going forward. We trust in our beginning to budget for the unfolding of our collective dreams as we embody our 2025-26 theme of centered in love, living our values as we create community, transform ourselves, and transform the world. It's hard even to remember where we were 5 years ago this week. We have largely sprung back from the privations of the pandemic. But do we have the courage to meet the moment this new fiscal year brings? Do we have the requisite base of leaders and people who volunteer to serve our community, to sustain the many ministries for which there is understandable pride among us? Do we have the resolve to meet the inflationary realities of our time in order to pay a living wage to a superlative staff? This morning we will be inspired by 2 stewardship testimonial segments to remind ourselves of the reasons people come to this congregation and what they love about it, and maybe hear some of their dreams for what the future holds. They also remind us that the we in the we of UUCMC, we are all there is in terms of financial and caring support. As we will hear later in the story at the heart of the Jewish festival of Purim, it is we who are called for such a time as this. There are no larger UU organizations who either support us financially or own us in part. The membership of UCMC is UUCMC. Living our values necessarily means commitment on the part of all UUCMC's constituents to increase their financial and volunteer support of this beloved institution. UUCMC is truly up to you and no one else. You own it. And sustaining it through your gifts of time, talent, and treasure is a loving duty, one that I know all members and friends take to heart. And in order to fuel us for meeting the times we are in, a world so in need of the values we espouse, this morning we introduce a new periodic worship service segment called the Social Justice Minute, to remind us of concrete ways we can be in solidarity, making change in our worlds. Our call to worship, with worship understood in its original meaning of a shaping concern for all that is of worth, comes to us from the credentialed religious educator at Sunny Hill, the UU Church of the South Hills in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Jennifer McLaughlin. As the first hint of green begins to peek through the barren ground, as that little sprig grows into a healthy stem, as that stem grows into a stalk and forms a bud, as that bud slowly opens with each new day to form a yellow daffodil, let us be like that first hint of green, renewed by the warmth of the sun's rays, and ready to emerge with new energy, ready to face the day. Come, let us worship together. Every week we ritualize the creation of sacred space by joining together 2 symbols of old, the chalice and the flame. In doing so, we remind ourselves that it is up to us to engage the continual rekindling of the fire of commitment that UCMC represents. And there is surely no group of people more representative of that fire than the dedicated professionals that we know and love as our staff. Each year, at some point, we remind ourselves of the time each of them has been a part of this congregational project. So I will invite them up sequentially and hold your appreciation until the end. In order of seniority, to light our chalice this morning, so newly part of our team, clocking in at 2 months, is our music director, Michael Rosen. So Michael, come on down. And then following my own milestone as 6 years of as your minister in July, we have the seasoned core of the team. Completing 13 years a month ago, February, is our membership coordinator, Lisa Arcolio. Hitting the 15-year mark this past December is our congressional administrator, Maggie Reardon. No? I got the name wrong? What did I say? Congressional. If only that could be true. We'd be in such better shape. Man, oh man. Thank you for the clarification. But, hope looms large all of a sudden. And with us in what will be 16 years in August is our Credential Director of Family Ministry, Michelle Mackenzie Creech. So as your staff lights the chalice flame this morning, let our chalice lighting words be some cheers of appreciation from a grateful congregation. All right, picture. There we go. All right. Oh, dear. I invite us to rise in body and our spirit to sing our opening hymn to this glorious season of rebirth, number 63 in our hymnals and on the screens, Spring Has Now Unwrapped the Flowers.
Good morning. My name is Chris Buja, and I'm a member of this congregation and a volunteer with the family ministry team. You may not know or recognize me as well, but perhaps you are more familiar with two young men to whom I bear a striking resemblance, as they have from time to time rung the chimes, as one of them did this morning, or lit candles during service. My sons, Ryan and Kyle. And thank you, Reverend Craig, for this invitation to share briefly my stewardship testimonial. My wife, Melanie, and our boys, we moved to Aberdeen in the summer of 2023 and began attending the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Monmouth County soon thereafter. And then in the spring of 2024, we became members. However, my Unitarian Universalist journey spans a much longer time frame, over 20 years at this point, which began with my first attending the UU Church in Corpus Christi, Texas, then another church in Tucson, Arizona. I then moved to New Jersey to serve as a religious educator at the Somerville congregation and then the Montclair congregation. I then became a member and volunteer at the Summit congregation. My family had the fortune to live abroad in Paris, France, and there was a UU Fellowship of Paris that we participated in. So you may have heard the expression, wherever you go, there you are. And apparently wherever I go, Unitarian Universalism is there as well. So that brings me to why this congregation matters to me and why I want to give of my time, treasure, and talent to support its maintenance and growth. All of those UU communities were there for me along my life journey, and I want the UU congregation of Monmouth County to continue to be here for myself, my family, for those who are already here, and those who have yet to discover it. I want to be part of a community that shares my values and helps reinforce those values that my wife and I are raising our children to live by. One example is the Unitarian Universalist commitment to affirm and promote the equal and inherent worth of every person. It is incredibly important and incredibly countercultural when so much of the dominant culture tells us that our worth comes from something outside of us, from titles and finances and identities. More specifically, that affirmation of the worth of every person, and it is so transformational and something I share with so many non-Unitarian Universalists, is the excellent program that this congregation and many others offer of the Our Whole Lives Sexuality and Faith curriculum. OWL, as it's known by its acronym, exemplifies what it is to affirm the worth of every person, much broader than whatever I'm sure was a fairly lackluster sexuality education we all received. It helps us affirm our own worth, know what it is to be in right relationship with ourselves, with others, especially where the dominant culture does not do that for the LGBTQ plus communities. So having been a facilitator and a program coordinator and a parent volunteer, I want that message that OWL delivers for my children, for everyone. I wish I had OWL when I was growing up, but I've been fortunate to participate as an adult and a facilitator. So in conclusion, I am a Unitarian Universalist and a member of this congregation because I want to live those values. I want my children to live those values, and that those values outlive us all. And while so many institutions seem to be faltering or are under assault, and that the only choices are to simply destroy those institutions or just half-heartedly support them, I know that by investing in this congregation, in this community that shares my values, those values will live on beyond my lifetime. And while there are many challenges like Sunday soccer games and scout camping, or maybe just a lazy Sunday, we continue to make and take the time to support this community, to contribute to its financial well-being and growth. Thank you for this opportunity to share a little of my Unitarian Universalist journey. Thank you to this congregation for being here, for continuing to be here, for your continued generosity so that this community will be here for everyone, whether it's their first UU community, their last UU community, or somewhere along that journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. On March 13th, a joyous Jewish celebration known as Purim began. It is a twofold event. First, there is fasting and listening to a reading of the entire scroll of the novelistic biblical book of Esther, the whole Megillah. which is where that expression comes from. It's from Purim. But then what follows is a feast for the eyes and stomach alike, with costumes and parading around and delicious food. Our story wisdom this morning, then, is that of Queen Esther, with some thanks to the Reverend Erica Hewitt, who helped distill the story to its essence. For a couple of years now, I have broken out my finger puppets, and I've been urged to reprise them. So here we go again. I hope you're ready. We're celebrating Purim here today, not necessarily because we're Jewish or pretending to be Jewish, but because it's a special story, a story that has been told for hundreds of years with valuable lessons. Hearing the story of Esther gives us a chance to learn about another faith tradition, and it reminds us to be brave in using our voices to speak our truth and to protect others. And it lets us have some fun being silly together as well. So begin. Let me introduce the four main characters. Two of them will need your help. First, we have King Ahasuerus, who rules over a large, powerful kingdom. Then there's Haman, a rich man with no principles. And tradition says that every time we hear the name of Haman, we boo or use noisemakers to cover up his ugly name. Let's try it again. Haman. All right. Now, Mordecai is the wise and kind uncle of our story, who is the leader of the Jewish community. And Esther, our heroine, let's see, there she is, is Mordecai's niece. And tradition says that every time you hear Esther's name, you cheer. So let's try that now. Esther! Yay! All right, let's go back, way back, 2,000 years to ancient Persia in what is today Iran. So King Ahasuerus held a great feast where he announced that he would be looking for a wife to be his new queen. That night, Mordecai went to find Esther. He told her that she was so beautiful, surely the king would choose her. Sure enough, because Esther was kind and gentle and very beautiful, the king chose her as his new queen as soon as he saw her. But before she left her uncle's home, Mordecai told her, "Don't be afraid, but do not tell anyone you are Jewish." One day, Mordecai happened to hear two men plotting to kill the king. He warned Esther, who notified the king, saving his life. And though it was recorded in the royal book that Mordecai, the Jewish leader, had saved the king, the matter was soon forgotten. Soon after, King Ahasuerus appointed the richest man in the kingdom as his new prime minister, Haman. Haman ordered that all bow down to him, and everyone did except Mordecai. Haman was so furious that Mordecai would not bow to him, and he went straight to the king to complain. "There is a people scattered throughout your kingdom, which is different from all others," he said. "They don't eat our food, they don't drink our wine, they don't marry our daughters. Every seventh day they rest, and they are always celebrating holidays. If you give me permission, I will remove them for you." Well, Ahasuerus gave Haman his royal ring to seal the orders and decrees. Haman wanted to execute his plan on a lucky day blessed by the gods and the stars, so he cast lots, a kind of like dice, which is Purim in Hebrew, to choose the day. Then he sent out a decree. On the 13th day of the month of Adar, you are to destroy, kill, and slaughter all the Jewish people, young and old, women and children. Their money and property will then belong to you. Well, Mordecai went to Esther. Yay! "You must go to the king to try to save the Jews." But she was afraid, for it was forbidden to counsel the king. But Mordecai encouraged her to speak, saying, and here's the takeaway line from the whole story, "Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" There are times in our lives when we feel afraid, or we think that we don't have anything important to say. Sometimes people tell us that our thoughts and feelings and needs are unimportant. But as you use, we value people for who they are, their ideas, their feelings, what makes them joyful, and what brings them sorrow. Now, Esther knew that she had to be very careful telling King Ahasuerus about the evil plan of Haman. The king knew that something was troubling her, and that night he could not fall asleep. He tossed and turned and finally called for his page to bring out the royal book and read him to sleep. The heavy book fell open to the story of how Mordecai had warned about the plot against the king and saved the king's life. And what reward did Mordecai receive? Asked the king. The royal page answered, we don't have a finger puppet for the royal page, you'll just have to imagine him. The royal page answered, none, sire. He saved my life and received no reward. The king summoned for Haman. Find Mordecai. Let him wear royal robes and place a crown upon his head. Let him ride the royal horse. This is to celebrate what he has done. Well, we too have reasons to be grateful for the blessings that we receive from each other and from our being together. And that's worth celebrating. We help one another by giving of our time, of our experience, of our talents, and our money. Well, Haman was furious, returning to the palace in a rage just in time to hear the king speaking to Esther. Yay. What is it, Esther? Yay. Speak it, and it shall be done. And she replied, spare my life and the lives of my people. We have been sentenced to death. Death? Your people? By whom? By an evil and wicked man, by your prime minister, Haman. This shall not be. And the king, seeing Haman standing in the shadows, ordered, take him away. In the end, Mordecai became the king's new prime minister in place of Haman. Purim reminds us that the decisions we take may well reveal that we have come into the world for such a time as this, that together we can turn things around. These stewardship weeks, we commit to support this beloved place. We're the only ones who can make UUCMC thrive or even exist. Centering ourselves in love in the new fiscal year, we can witness the living out of our values. It will take all of us. We are our congregation's sustainers and movers and emboldeners. So let us be daring and creative and transformative. Let us be brave like Esther. Yay! Let us center ourselves in love. We have come together to live our values for such a time as this. This is our time. And now let us sing our younger people to their small group learning with Go Now in Peace. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you every day you may go.
Good morning. My name is Fran Sullivan, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. My relationship to UUCMC began 5 years ago during COVID, one of the beneficial effects of that terrible pandemic, for which I am grateful. I attended services virtually and then in person when that became available, but I was reluctant to become a member until I shared with Reverend Craig how hard it was for me to shed my Catholic identity. When the journalist Pete Hamill was asked about his faith, he replied, "It was very difficult to get Catholic out of your soul." That explains my predicament exactly. The first 40 years of my life, I was very attached to the faith. And the next 40 years, I fell into the category of a lapsed Catholic. And all because I had grown weary of carrying on an argument in my head with some of the teachings that I couldn't accept. Reverend Craig made it clear to me that membership did not require I renounce my identity as a Catholic. And after our conference, I felt free to become a member. I believe I had already implicitly lived in the spirit of our 8 principles, but it made a difference to embrace them explicitly and to be able to say, "This is what I believe," and no argument in my head. And now I reflect on what membership means to me. First, I am delighted to have a Sunday practice. I am delighted to be part of a community where members participate so actively, from the caring community, from the worship committee, to the social justice committee, to the music program in all its expressions, to those who have eliminated our carbon footprint, to the coffee makers and the greeters. I never tire of hearing the words, "Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you got to this beloved place, you are welcome." It is that phrase, as much as anything else, that makes me happy to be a member of the congregation. Beyond that, I have been inspired to work the best way I can to sustain our democracy. I led a democracy circle last year at the atrium where I live, and now I lead a group of activists who do the phone calling, postcarding, protesting, and supporting of immigrants. While this is a meager effort, we are joined with UUSJ, the Democracy Action Team, ACLU, and Indivisible. So collectively, we hope to have an impact. In the early 70s, I was greatly influenced by the book Man Becoming by Gregory Baum, an Augustinian friar. And the concept that most impressed me was that we were co-creators with that divine, life-giving energy that gave us this universe and calls on us to further its evolution in life-giving and life-sustaining ways. In a word, that energy is called love, which brings me to our Centered in Love campaign. I consider my pledge an investment in my own becoming, my own transformation, as well as the community's. I quote my brother, the late Bishop Sullivan, who raised money for endless causes with the mantra, "No money, no mission." This congregation has a mission that serves us and serves the world, and it needs our support to continue to do so. It seems we need about $420,000 next year, so let's give, each according to our means, and keep our wonderful staff and our earth room and the whole physical plant so beautifully cared for. Thank you.
That's gorgeous. Thank you. Irene. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Fran. It stuck me to my seat, and I didn't get up here as promptly. Every week in this congregation, we are provided with an opportunity to practice generosity, so beautifully referred to by Fran. This is your invitation to contribute to the well-being of our congregation and to our social justice partners through the good works of organizations which receive half of the monies we collect here each month. Our Share the Plate recipient for the month of March is Planned Parenthood of Northern, Central, and Southern New Jersey, the clinic closest to us being in Shrewsbury. Planned Parenthood offers a great many services, including abortion services, free STD, COVID, HIV, and pregnancy testing, and emergency contraception and birth control. Another offering is My Black Health is Beautiful, a lesson plan series written by Black women for the Black communities with lessons on reproductive and Black maternal health. For those of you present here in the meeting house, the plates will be passed by the ushers. You may also join the time of generosity via text and your offering by mail, or charge your contribution online with a memo designating an amount to Planned Parenthood. Please give generously.
Purim is, on one level, as we heard in the Story Wisdom segment, a whimsical story of the salvation of the Jewish people. It also kicks off a season of Jewish spring festivals that culminates in Passover. But what always moves me about the holiday, and what resonates deeply with me, especially perhaps this year, is its contention that things can be different. That Queen Esther's having been born for such a time as this lets us know that each of us is also able in some way that is ours alone to make a difference, to radically shift our worlds around us. For in the book of Esther, everything that was going to happen was turned upside down. Instead of Haman wearing the robes on the king's horse, it is Mordecai. Instead of the destruction of the Jews triumph over their enemies. The story was transformed in what seemed like an instant. But at the heart of this topsy-turvy new world order is a simple fact. It happened because a couple of people realized they were in a position to make a change. They responded to such a time as this to play their parts in the reversal of a people's fortunes. Purim gives us all the chance to tilt our standard view on its head, to notice what had gone unremarked, and to understand that it is in our power, human beings, to enact change for the better, to take extraordinary and tragic circumstances that exist and choose to make a difference. Purim is in many ways a fairy tale. There is no historical reality to its plot, and its excesses are meant to be somewhat farcical. But I think, too, along with the traditional joys of Purim dressing up and dancing, drinking, and eating cookies, there is a chance to understand an important truth. It is people, ordinary people, who change the world. The Mexican-American Jungian psychologist and author of Women Who Run with the Wolves, Clarissa Pinkola Estes, in 2020 wrote a letter to a young activist during troubled times with the subtitle, "Do Not Lose Heart. We were made for these times." Her words have remained deeply relevant, and I offer them as a reading for us to take into our hearts this morning. For I know, because I hear from so many of you, that you are worried, freaked out, confused, angry, and longing to know what on earth can be done. Estes' letter is written to us for our times, and she begins by acknowledging the disheartening state of the world, one resulting in people who are deeply and properly bewildered. She writes, "Abject disregard of what the soul finds most precious and irreplaceable, and the corruption of principled ideals have become in some large societal arenas the new normal, the grotesquerie of the weak. It is hard to say which one of the current egregious matters has rocked people's worlds and beliefs more. Ours is a time of almost daily jaw-dropping astonishment and often righteous rage over the latest degradations of what matters most to civilized, visionary people. The hubris some have aspired to while endorsing acts so heinous against children, elders, everyday people, the poor, the unguarded, the helpless, is breathtaking." 2020, she wrote this. Even so, she urges that we not lose hope. And here's where she emerges as a latter-day Mordecai, for she takes us aside with her words, saying, "Please, do not spend your spirit dry by bewailing these difficult times. Most particularly because the fact is, we were made for these times. Yes, for years, we have been learning, practicing, been in training for, and just wanting to meet on this exact plane of engagement. I cannot tell you often enough that we are definitely the leaders we have been waiting for, and that we have been raised since childhood for this time precisely. I would like to take your hands for a moment and assure you that you are built well for these times. Despite your stints of doubt, your frustrations and writing all that needs change right now, or even feeling you have lost the map entirely, you are not without resource. You are not alone. We all have a heritage and history of being gutted. And yet remember this especially, we have also, of necessity, perfected the knack of resurrection. Over and over again, we have been the living proof that that which has been exiled, lost, or foundered can be restored to life again. This is as true and sturdy a prognosis for the destroyed worlds around us as it was for our own once mortally wounded selves. We are needed. That is all we can know. One of the most important steps you can take is to help calm the storm is not allow yourself to be taken in a flurry of overwrought emotion or despair. Ours is not the task of fixing the entire world all at once, but of stretching out to mend the part of the world that is within our reach. any small, calm thing that one soul can do to help another soul, to assist some portion of this poor, suffering world, will help immensely. And Estes goes on to finish, it is not given to us to know with which acts or by whom will cause the critical mass to tip toward an enduring good. What is needed for dramatic change is an accumulation of acts, adding to, adding more, continuing. We know that it does not take everyone on earth to bring justice and peace, but only a small, determined group who will not give up. Do not lose heart. We were made for these times. The past several weeks in the UU-CMC e-blast, there is a new section right after the monthly newsletter from me. Yes, I write a monthly newsletter in the e-blast. The new section is called Take Action, in which you will find immediate steps that you can take to be in community with others, trainings in which you can participate, always remembering that we are not alone, and that if we center ourselves in love, if we continue living our values, we may just discover that we were born for such times as these. This week in the e-blast, there's a video message from several minister colleagues in our Central East region of the Unitarian Universalist Association, who noticed that this climate we are in seems to bring out both the best and the worst in a lot of us, sometimes all at the same time. And they offer some thoughts on the way forward together. I recommend the video to you. But the Reverend Megan Foley, our outgoing regional head, offers these words with which I will move toward ending my own comments this morning. They're words by American writer and activist Rebecca Solnit. And this is what Rebecca Solnit said. They want you to feel powerless and to surrender and to let them trample everything. And you are not going to let them. You are not giving up. And neither am I. The fact that we cannot save everything does not mean we cannot save anything. And everything we can save is worth saving. You may need to grieve or scream or take time off, but you have a role, no matter what. And right now, good friends and good principles are worth gathering in. Remember what you love. Remember what loves you. Remember in this tide of hate what love is. The pain you feel is because of what you love. Take care of yourself. And remember that taking care of something else is an important part of taking care of yourself, because you are interwoven with the 10 trillion things in this single garment of destiny that has been stained and torn, but is still being woven and mended and washed. At Purim time, we are told to drink until we can no longer hear the difference between the phrases, "Cursed be Haman" and "Blessed be Mordecai." I think the point isn't to get really, really drunk, because these two phrases couldn't be sounding any less similar. I think the point is to understand the things in common between the seemingly dissimilar phrases, that even at the heart of apparent evil, there can be a drop of good. That underneath the surface of love, there can linger sparks of hatred. And the difference between the two is up to people, is up to us. Can we rise to the challenge to understand things in new ways? Can we look into the hearts of those who are in apparent opposition to our values and find common good? Can we see that beneath the strength of our own virtues, there can be streaks of unthinking allegiance to one way of doing things? The point of Purim, as it leads us into a series of spring festivals that focus on the survival of the people and the resurrection of hope from despair, is to shake us up in our ordinary way of seeing our worlds. In the encounter between people, between good and evil, good can triumph if we don't give up the impulse to meet one another. If we don't forget that there's always another way to tell a story. if we stay open to the possibility that we, just like they, can change, it is possible that the opposite can happen. And who knows, but that we were born for such a time as this. May it be so for all of us. I now invite Tony Giordano to offer a way that we might get involved in feeling part of the change we seek in the first of a series of worship segments I'm calling the Social Justice Minute. Tony!
Good morning. I'm Tony Giordano. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I serve on the Social Justice Committee and the Democracy team that's part of that. This is, as Reverend Craig said, this is the first of a series, what will be a series of Social Justice Minutes, where committee members come up and encourage you to take certain actions that we believe would be helpful. I think that regardless of your politics, most people will agree that there's just way too much money in politics. The money is corrupting, it supports autocracy, and it drowns out the voice of the people. I've been reading a lot lately about civil resistance tactics, and I've learned that protests and demonstrations are very important, but they're not enough, unfortunately, to stop autocracy. What needs to be done is you have to target the support and the money that's behind the regime, the autocrats. One way to do this is by consumer boycotts. As consumers, we have an enormous amount of enormous amount of power, perhaps more than the power we have as citizens and voters, which is unfortunate, but it seems to be true today. So one good, easy action to take is to follow the consumer blackouts that have been advertised in the e-blast, and there's copies of the blackout schedule on the table in the front foyer. The blackouts target the large corporations that have been violating our UU principles and many of the values that Americans hold dear, such as principles related to democracy and basic human rights. This is a good time to learn corporations to buy from that are socially and environmentally responsible, or to buy from small businesses. If you must buy during these blackouts, please avoid the large corporations and buy from those alternatives. I can't promise you that these blackouts will work, but they will definitely help if enough people participate. So I encourage you to spread the word. Thank you.
I invite us into a time of prayer and meditation. Pope Francis, from his hospital bed this week, from which he was released and went home this morning, amazingly, as he was very, very ill. But from his hospital bed this week, urges us all to continue prayers for peace. Especially, he went on in the countries wounded by war, tormented Ukraine, Palestine, Israel, Lebanon, Myanmar, Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. I invite us to pray for peace abroad and right here at home with the Hebrew song, Shalom Chavarim. Chavarim, which literally translates as friends, combined with shalom, that beautiful word meaning farewell, hello, peace. And the second line, lahitraot, means until we meet again. We'll remain seated in a prayerful stance. It's number 400 in the hymnals, and it's on the screens. I'll sing it through once. We'll all sing it through once, and then Michael will lead us in our singing it as a round. Shalom Chabarim, Shalom Habarim, Shalom, shalom, lehitraot, lehitraot, shalom, 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 havarim, shalom, havarim, shalom, shalom, lehitraot, lehitraot, shalom, shalom.
It's a three-part round. If you were born between January and April, you will come in first. If you were born between May and August, you will come in second. And of course, if September to December, you will come in last. I will sing all three entrances. They're only a measure apart. Shalom, Havarim. Part 2, Shalom, Havarim. Part 3. So they're one right after another, and then you're in, and just keep going. I will be very clear when I'm accompanying. First part, 1. Shalom, Havarim. 2. Shalom, Havarim. 3. Shalom,
Shalom, lehitraot, lehitraot, shalom, shalom. 1. Shalom, havarim, shalom, havarim, shalom, havarim, shalom, havarim, shalom, shalom, lehitraot, lehitraot, shalom, 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 havarim, shalom, havarim, shalom, shalom, lehitraot, lehitraot, shalom, shalom, shalom.
Just the last word, shalom, twice. Shalom, 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 shalom.
Amen. Amen. In the past several years, we've been careful not to engage words that increase ableism in the world. For instance, UUs have changed their advocacy group name from Standing on the Side of Love to Side with Love. So I ask as we sing our closing hymn entitled One More Step, that we sing it in the spirit of the definition of the word step as a measure or action, especially one in a series taken in order to deal with or achieve a particular thing, rather than the steps taken with temporarily abled legs. I invite us to rise in body and or spirit. Number 168 in our hymnals and on the screens, our closing hymn, One More Step.
One more step, we will take one more step. More step.
we will sing one more song till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song. For our closing words of benediction, I've chosen a short poem of the season by Robert Levette Smith, a San Francisco-based writer who works as a special education paraprofessional at George Washington High School in the Richmond district of San Francisco. Smith speaks of spring, of trust, and of awakening to meet the moment. March is a mentor we must learn to trust. The greening threshold of the ancient year, when soil revives and skies abruptly clear, seeds struggle into sunlight, as they must. We feel within ourselves that upward thrust, that sense of something constant drawing near, something whose steadiness allays our fear, its gifts ubiquitous, but not discussed. How confidently spring makes promises the stellar's jays seem certain it will keep. This season means exactly what it says. Our eyes turn skyward, yet our roots go deep. What lies ahead is anybody's guess. But for the moment, we are done with sleep. Let us go in peace, in trust, in solidarity, to bless the world.